I want to thank one of our sponsors, the Joplin Greenhouse and Coffee, a local business who supports local business. And they also make our community great. Without sponsors like the Joplin Greenhouse and Coffee, our program, the Donnie B Show, and the MAGA Locally platform would not be here today. So we would like to thank our sponsor, the Joplin Greenhouse and Coffee. When you get a chance, they got some great coffee. Go in and meet their team. They'll be happy to serve you.
I don't always drink water, but when I do, it has to be bougie. The secret is in the water, my friend.
To the Donnie B Show on the MAGA Locally platform. Welcome, Senator Carter. How are you today?
Hey, really good. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Hey, I'm glad to have you. There's been a lot going on the last couple of weeks. If we could just take 15, 20 minutes and let us know, what's happened the last week or so, and then maybe what's going on next week. And if there's anything that's on your heart, maybe we can talk about it.
You just want me to start? Just talk about?
Yeah, what happened? I think people are really, there's lots of things, there's the IP reform, there's the education bill, there's day-to-day activities. So, if there's anything this week that you think your constituents need to know that maybe is not out there on the Channel 3 news that maybe they need to get involved with, maybe that'd help.
Yeah, so this week it was kind of a slow week. We had the eclipse that kind of distracted away from some Senate business in the legislature as well. The House didn't meet on Monday, and so really business picked up Tuesday, which leaves you Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So there was a filibuster, not yesterday, but man, I'm so shocked at how the days just blur. But there was a filibuster, I think it was Wednesday night. No, it had to have been Tuesday night. So there was a filibuster all night on a bill to defund Planned Parenthood. And so that went until about 12:30 or 12:45 at night. And so that was something that kind of took a lot of the front and center. We were able to get that got passed. And the goal there again is, do taxpayers get to choose? Should taxpayers pay for that kind of, for corporations be able to provide services that not everybody necessarily agrees with? And so that did pass. It's something they've been working on for a while. I know there's a lawsuit currently that the governor is facing in having done that another way without legislative authority. They did it through the budget. So hopefully that will clarify some of that and give a little bit of
it seems there's a real spiritual and legal war, and it's all about abortion. It's all about the right to life. Everything. Yeah. It seems there's a lot of activity right now centered around that. I have the sign back behind me. I went to actually one of your Night for the People, and there's the decline to sign here. And I didn't really think too much about it until I've been out in Joplin in the parking lots, and my wife, and I just sit and watch, and there's these people that are coming to you and say, do you support women's reproductive freedom? And at first I'd be like, yeah, I want to support their reproductive rights, because when I hear the word reproductive, I'm thinking the right to have life. But then when you ask them, you look at the ballot, and then, I have the ballot material here, and it goes in and it says, when Jay Ashcroft wrote it, it said to ban abortion. And then they got the right. These people sued them so they couldn't say the word abortion. So it's so deceptive. And then when you start reading the material, there's a war. There's a spiritual war. It's about deceiving the people. So as I watch these parents at a school function, at a kid's function, pushing a stroller, and I see somebody that I asked, I said, where are you from? I'm from Pennsylvania. They weren't even from the state. They were collecting the signatures. They went to a mother and a father that had a baby. They were a young couple. They had no idea. They just signed it right there, signed the right to have abortion, and they're new parents. Sometimes I think the deception, the lawfare, the dysfunction in some of this is, I think we might talk about here in a minute. It just confuses the average person on voting. And that's the whole design, is to give you something at the last minute, deceive you, and confuse you.
Well, and honestly, they don't know what that signature means sometimes. And
Right.
so they're thinking about getting their shopping done, right? Not about necessarily the backside of what all this looks like. And so no, it's something like I said, it's a broader kind of conversation where you're trying to educate people to let them know, that's fine. We can talk about issues, but the functionality of how things work is you. I say this all the time. You won't fight for the thing you don't love, and you won't love the thing you don't understand.
Right.
So first, trying to help people understand how this works, so that it empowers them to know how to engage and interact in that process, is something that they can determine that on their own, but I feel an obligation to try to educate them so that they know how to properly engage, right? So you see people sign things and then just walk on, and I wonder to myself how many times, okay, do you actually know and understand the process of what that signature or that John Henry that you're putting on that piece of paper, really the ramifications of that ultimately? So no, good questions. Good.
And I also wonder, I'm like, originally when the petition process was even designed and formed, you really think the petition process is designed for the grassroots people from a community. So I would expect people here in Joplin to be gathered if they want, reproductive rights. Those people should stand up, get their people out canvassing. But no, we've got people from out of state that are staying in nice hotels, getting paid a salary from people that are not even from our state. I mean, I don't even see how that should be even allowed or legal. It's so deceiving, and people just don't quite. I never grasped this, but I'm starting to really understand what's going on here.
No, and again on the other side, then you have people, that are good people that just kind of tend to not want to engage because they see it as so controversial. Everything's so controversial, right? We're so fractured and so divided, and yes, well, that's true. I'd love to, and I don't even know how to articulate this, because I definitely am passionate about my values and who I am as a person. But outside of that, I want I want the people that I represent to feel like they have a place in the conversation.
Right.
So, there's a quote that says, never let the problem to be solved become bigger than the person to be cared about.
Right.
And while I'm a farm girl, I try very hard to not ride fences. I'm not a fence rider. But you can't get to the place of solving bigger problems when you can't even have the conversations. And so what you have is people who are good people that don't even want to start the conversation. They don't even want to engage because they say that's controversial. Well, don't be pushed out of the arena.
Right.
That's what this government, that's what we've been blessed with. So if you just want to be told what to do, that to me saddens me, because what you're basically doing is relinquishing that right to have a say. And even though it's messy and it's hard and it's cumbersome, it's beautiful. You can treat each other civilly.
Right. Sorry, I got a little delay.
No.
I think I stepped on you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. It's all good.
As we look, I think Americans right now at a national and even a state level, we're just so frustrated. I think everybody's polarized. They're on along their lines, whether it's Republican or Democrat or whatever party they're in. But I think the reason they're frustrated is because there's so much deceptive politics. When you follow a bill, and I'm a homeschooler and I followed the pro-choice, and I saw it coming through the Senate. It started off with 1 page, 2 pages, maybe 3 pages, and you can clearly read and understand what it is. And then the night before you guys vote on it, it turns into 163 pages, and you're like, "Wow, I was for it, but now I don't even understand what it's about." And that's coming down from, nationally throughout different states. It seems like they target the abortion and they target the pro-choice, and it's all about getting more control, more power. And it's at the end of the day, it's about chasing big bags of money. And I think the Americans are so tired of watching their House of Representatives, their congressmen, and their senators chase that big bag of money that they think they need to bring back to their district. We don't want the money. We don't want that big bag of money. We just want transparency and truth.
Well, and so
Issues.
how do you, so always the big question in my mind is, how do you have those bigger conversations? And to be completely transparent, how do we have it to where, A, I always ask myself, I mean, I want to have those conversations. But B, how do I have them? And C, will it make a difference? Do people really, I believe that they do want to know. I hope that they do, and they just haven't been able to find it. But how do you have those bigger conversations to where it's just not this emotional contest on who can bully somebody else in the corner, but to say, somebody who really believes in those same things, but yet I have pause and reservation about implementation, and policy matters.
Right.
So to just throw something, a title on a bill or something and say, here it is, and you've got to vote for this because of what the title is honestly offensive. It's what's created the culture that we're in.
When I look at that, I'm looking at this scenario with SB 727 and how it started out small and understandable, and overnight it went to 163 pages, and there's no way any of you could read it and understand it before you voted on it. There's no way the American people that your constituents that you came back and said, hey, this is a good bill, let's get on board with this. And now they turn that, that could be turned around. So it's a lawfare. They're using lawfare. They're using information warfare. So they take the law and they throw it in overnight. And then they have this information campaign that says, if you don't keep supporting this 163 page bill that was once 3 pages, then you're a bad person. And they just keep sounding that trumpet over and over and over again until nobody knows what was in the bill. I have good friends,
It always boils down to, it always boils down to, are you able to bridge conversations beyond just the emotional construct of your worldview?
Right.
Because there are times when, okay, I believe in, I have no problem saying I'm the epitome of choice, I feel like, of wanting choice with education, because I have evidence of that in how I've raised my children. But at the same time, the reason why I'm pro-choice is because government has become so offensive, in its ties to our local schools, right? Like, why can't my public school look like the private school? Well, it's because of government. And so, I mean, we don't even ask questions like that. What are those kids that are going to be left in those 900,000 kids? If those kids are going to be left, and I say this as somebody who has a child with special needs, who could never have gone to the private school that my other kids went to. And so, having had that experience as a mom, I'm thinking, okay, I don't want my public schools to become the home for the misfits. Right. But at the same time, I don't want somebody who's smart and, very has gifts towards STEM to be held back either. So how do we have these conversations to where we're creating a sense of community in education and not just, a sense of abandonment, and that it has to be my way because of how bad, how did we get here? And I would say that a lot of it is because we let go of the wheel.
I think we as people let go of the wheel.
We let go of the wheel, and if we're wanting, and this I say, a lot of people are running from something, not to something. And as Americans, the government should be a reflection of us. And so, absolutely. No, come back. And I get that we have this problem, but one bill could fix a lot of this. One piece of legislation. If you're saying it could fix it over here, well, it definitely could fix it over here. So why don't you just incorporate the two? But when you were told you can't, when you're told you can't fix the problem,
Then you
while
got
at
to
the same
have
time
ask the question
giving us
why.
solution.
Why?
What? Yeah,
Then you have to ask the question why. Why are you not allowed to fix it? And
right.
who's paying for your decision to not allow it to be fixed?
Well, and just,
Right?
okay, so are we ethically and morally okay with just continuing, especially when it is such a big behemoth, right?
Right.
As far as a government bureaucracy. And so that's where I really struggle. No, it's not okay to leave anybody behind. We're a community.
Right.
And so while
You know,
we're trying to fix the hemorrhaging over on this side, what about what has created the problem in the first place? And it's a twofold conversation, and one that deserves a reckoning.
yeah.
So
Well, I think a reckoning's coming. Unfortunately.
And everybody just likes to put it in, some kind of a title, or, you're anti whatever, you're anti. It's just like, geez, just put down your damaging verbal barbs for a minute and let's have a conversation.
Right.
And nobody's saying it has to be my way or the highway, or, I mean, I've had the Sierra Club was in yesterday in my office, and there's a lot of things I don't agree with them on, but there are some things that we have in agreement. And it's, wow, so great as an American to be able to sit down and talk to somebody that you disagree with and say, okay, so now we found some commonality. Yeah. But when you're not allowed to do that in a culture, or even within your own party, or within, we're just creating more and more tribes, so to speak. I mean, my husband used to say this, how did the Indians suffer the way that they suffered? They didn't, and maybe this isn't politically correct, but it is history. They allowed themselves to be divided, and they didn't fight. They were in tribes. Yeah. And so you just see that over and over again, and especially playing out in our culture today. And it's like, above all of the politics, I'm an American. Now, can we work from that place? I mean, where's the plateau that we can jump off from, that actually we can agree, yeah, this is a place that we can start having a conversation. And whether that's, hey, I live in Southwest Missouri, or I'm a Missourian, or I'm an American, or whatever level that is, I'm a community member. That's where I kind of come at all of these conversations as, okay, so where can we, as a female, as a mom, or as a whatever classification that we tend to define ourselves by, where can we start having these kinds of conversations that actually pulls our community back together instead of fracturing them? And again, we all think that has to come from a place of giving up our ideology, our principles, or I don't believe that it does. I don't have to sit there and shove something down your throat and prove that I'm right. I can sit here and have a civil conversation with you and say, well, I have a tendency to disagree because of this, this, and this. My world experiences have taught me this, and this is why I believe the way I do.
Right.
And I can agree. I can see from your worldview, your perspective, why it is the way that it is. So what if we did this A, B, and C and address both of those concerns? And is there even a place in politics to even have those kinds of conversations anymore? Because sometimes outside of the building, it feels as if, and inside the building, it feels like if you have those kinds of conversations, then you're seen as somebody who's could potentially be seen as somebody who's placating or playing both sides. No, I just want to have honest conversations about the reality of how this all works and how do we move forward. So
yeah, everybody can sit at home and be, the quarterback sitting on the couch watching the game, right? And they have all the grand ideas and all the right answers, but they're not there putting in the day-to-day work of speaking with the constituents, speaking with the other legislators, reading the law, understanding the law. How is it going to impact the different groups, homeschoolers, public school, private school, charter schools? I mean, it's so much. So, my hat's off to you guys, that those of you who could sit down at the table and have a good conversation. We need more of it. I'm glad you're one of those people that can do it. I personally can't because I'm probably the one you're talking about. I got my own tribe and I'm sticking with it. But
No, and it's not bad. It's not bad, because you do. I mean, there's all these nuances, right? It's like an onion. You peel it back, and you have people that you
right.
tend to have relationships with, or whatever. But sometimes you have to have a relationship beyond that, and then to be able to come together and say, before you make up your mind about something, let's just hear this person out.
Right.
And I
Senator.
tend
Oh, sorry.
I tend to gravitate to those kinds of conversations, even though I'm very opinionated about my own opinions. This is what I believe, so change my mind.
Right. Well, that's what we like about you. I know you're busy, and I know you got to get home tonight. So
Yeah.
I always search the internet. I watch YouTube. I watch articles. I do my research. People are concerned about water rights and natural resources in Missouri possibly being shipped out. And again, lawfare, special interest groups coming in and maybe putting the word may or instead of shall, or with this exception letter, you can transport the water. So, what seems to be good legislation, if it has bad intent behind it and they know the little bitty loopholes that are written in it, that's what scares Americans when we see some of the stuff that's coming out of our legislators, that it looks shiny. It looks like a shiny apple, but it's rotten at its core. And they know it's rotten, and it's a time bomb that won't be exposed for about 2 years from now. So, that's what I'd like to know. Are you worried about our natural resources, our waters, our streams? I know you're a farm girl, farm
Yeah, no,
woman,
for sure.
lady. I don't know how you say it.
I think the reason why water is something that we really need to be discussing is because it's not just our own, again, if something that we kind of take for granted, but what you're seeing is that is a big issue internationally, right? You have these global kind of organizations, World Economic Forum, the WHO, all of these people talking about how important water is. And when they start talking about and parroting, then it's like, okay, what's up? So
Right.
it's important to pay attention to those kinds of things and not just be stuck into your own, again, just tunnel vision of, oh, this is just a unique bill, it hits the floor. No, what's the potential structure that's being built in another piece of legislation that has one or two lines,
Right.
and it's really difficult. It should be difficult. That's why we were talking earlier. It's like there are only 34 senators in the state of Missouri. 34.
Right.
I don't know about you guys, but like I said, my high school class was about 34. In my science, or your PE class. And then when you take that and pare that down to having 18, it only takes 18 to pass a piece of legislation in the Senate. Somebody taught me the other day, the House, their job is to create bills, they turn, that's the system. They're cranking things out, and the Senate makes laws. And so I get frustrated when I hear people say, the Senate is just so, dysfunctional, or thank heavens that there's some
Right.
dysfunctionality. And what you consider dysfunctionality, even though, yes, it feels like dysfunction, and I agree, nobody likes the push-pull, but at the same time, there are over 2,500 bills passed. Thank heavens there's dysfunction. I mean, you look at the Founding Fathers and the Federalist Papers and what they wrote about, that was their intent. Their intent was, we would much rather have it be, quote unquote, dysfunctional and not have bills pass versus make the system so easy that people no longer have their rights. And so, anyway, that's just been on my mind and my heart. I know as we're coming toward the end of session, there's going to be a lot of talk about what got passed and what didn't get passed. And I have a list of bills that I would have loved to have seen passed and will continue to fight for. But the process itself, outside of all, again, that emotion, it's beautiful. And don't let your emotion or your frustration in the process be a contributing factor to tearing something down that you there was a thought that went and said, I actually don't even remember where I heard this, but it was years ago and it's never left me. Before you change the rule, know why it exists in the first place. And so as we're looking at government and our frustration, right, there's some kind of an appetite or attitude sometimes that, oh my gosh, we're just so frustrated. And I'm there very frustrated. But at the same time, I'm trying to not tear down the fabric that is this most beautiful gift we've been given. And so how do we do that? Is the number one question.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
I know you got to go, and you've been great for getting on the show. Maybe
no worries.
Get on one more time before your session's over with in May. It ends at the end of May, correct?
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. All right. And I want to say something. I want you to think about the impact of forced mass refugee placement into a community, because I understand Joplin's getting 150 refugees, which I've been a sponsor of refugees, so I understand the process and I'm supportive of it, but it wasn't mass. So when I look at that, what's the impact on the school system that doesn't have 19 different language translators from 19 different countries? And then same way with the immigration being forced in, illegal immigration forced in on school. So that, if you might think about that, I'd love to pick your brain on that subject at a future date.
Sounds good, Donnie. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Carter. Have a great evening.
Bye. You too. Bye-bye.